one of the nice things about winter, one of the only nice things
Around here, yeah.
or especially when it first starts to kick in, is I feel pretty good about staying home on a weekend night and cooking a nice dinner, or spending all afternoon on a Saturday or Sunday and cooking, and it's fun. So in our What's Cooking segment, I actually did that last week, where it was a pretty time-intensive process of cooking vegetable ragu over pasta, and then I also made some shrimp, my favorite way to make shrimp, by the way, which we'll show you in this next segment. But the nice thing about, I'm trying to make a taste like a meat dish, but there is no meat, you know?
Okay.
Like a ragu is normally a short rib. So here's the ingredients: dried ancho chili, shrimp, you see some limes, and you see cherry tomatoes, vegetable stock, tomato paste, all sorts of vegetables, red Fresno, carrot, green and red bell peppers, some fresh oregano, portobello mushrooms, plenty of garlic, Malfadine pasta from Wegmans, crushed red pepper, sugar and cinnamon, salt, pepper, more mushrooms, shiitake and baby bellas, some Parmesan Reggiano, and then of course, this is very important for this dish, a strong red wine. This is Campo Viejo, it's from Spain, it's a Tempranillo.
Whoa.
So first, we're going to get started by preparing the shrimp. I take those dried ancho chilies, which are just amazing. I love dried chipotle or ancho, and I kind of put that in there with some fresh garlic in this NutriBullet, but you can do a blender or a food processor. And I squeeze all those lemons in there, and then get ready to break that all down in the NutriBullet, and then dump it on that shrimp. Toss it around a little bit, and then first a little bit of that crushed hot red pepper, a little olive oil as well on top of that, and then just mix it up, and then we're just going to set that aside in the refrigerator while we do everything else, and we'll bring that back at the end. With everything else I got going on, you're going to forget about the shrimp by the time we're done, so it's going into the fridge.
I'm already hungry just looking at those shrimp.
So next we have to roast vegetables. We have to roast the heck out of everything to get that charred flavor that's going to really be the base of the ragu and make it taste meaty, even though there is no meat. So you can see there I kind of prepped those garlic cloves for the heads of garlic for roasting, and now the carrots, which I don't like carrots that much, but I do like to roast carrots. Very important part of this dish. And these cherry tomatoes are actually the flavor bombs from Wegmans, if you've seen them. They're really unbelievably delicious cherry tomatoes. And we got an eggplant, and we're just going to cube that up. And by the time we're done with all this stuff, you're not going to taste any individual component. They're all going to kind of be part of the ragu that's going over the pasta. You'll taste them all, but you won't really be able to say, oh, that's a carrot, that's an eggplant.
Right.
And so now we're also going to prep these bell peppers. So I don't think I had, did I do red? I don't think I did any red bell peppers. I think just green bell peppers. So, and again, just not dicing them, just chopping them, preparing them to roast. And then same thing with these red Fresnos, just kind of cutting out some big pieces, not dicing it. It's all going to go in the oven for roasting. I love those red Fresno peppers too. So now they're all on the cooking sheet, and some black pepper, some crushed red pepper going on there, a little sugar and cinnamon, heavy on the carrots, and the eggplant with that.
Okay.
Heavy on the carrots and eggplant. So there it is. Now we put a heavy dose of olive oil on top of those garlic cloves for roasting, and then everything else, including those portobello mushrooms, which are a key part, and then into the oven at, I don't know, 325, 350.
I can't imagine the smell that was coming out of your kitchen. It had to be so good.
Once they get going, it does start to smell good. So now we're going to prep the base of the sauce. These onions are not going to be roasted. They're just going to be diced up as small as possible. And I'm sure people have seen this method of chopping onions, where you kind of slice the sides and then slice the tops, and then they just dice up super simple with this next cut.
Oh, fancy. I honestly have never seen that because I hate cutting onions.
So what else we got going on here? Oh, these are some more of our other mushrooms. There's a lot of mushrooms in this dish, as in any vegetarian dish that you're trying to make hearty and meaty without meat. These are the baby bellas, and I just chopped up the shiitakes, the whole mushrooms, and dicing them up into small little pieces. So take this out of the oven. Not done yet, but if you're roasting vegetables, you're going to have to move them around a little bit. So that's essentially what I'm doing here, is just flipping those mushrooms and moving those carrots around, get some different surface area facing up, and then when everything's moved around, it goes back in a little longer. And then this was a little time lapse. Probably about a half an hour went by there, and look, they're all charred and really delicious, in my opinion.
I would eat those just like that.
I did sample a few. So now to get going with the base of the sauce, a little olive oil, just a half a stick of butter, and then we're going to go in there with those chopped diced onions, and you can see that's breaking down, and then the mushrooms. Once those onions get a little soft, all those mushrooms I chopped up go in there, and we're going to let that cook down. A little salt and pepper in there as well. And now I think what's next is I got to start preparing the oh no, these are the, watch how easily after they've been roasted. I let that cool. I don't want to burn my hands, but once you roast those garlic heads, you just squeeze right out. And now I'm dicing up the roasted vegetables as fine as I can, and it's going to cook down in the pot for a long time too, which is going to break them down even further. But I don't want any big chunks of carrots. Same thing with the green peppers and the red Fresno. We're just going to chop those up as fine as we can, and even mush them a little bit, you know.
Oh yeah.
And then these are the cherry tomatoes. Some of the cherry tomatoes going in there. So everything's going in now to the saucepan. I use my hands a lot. They're the greatest tools, I think, in the kitchen. I also wash my hands about 20 times.
I was literally going to ask you that a few minutes ago.
So now everything's in there, and we're just going to mix it up and really cook it down over high heat. We're going to want it to actually stick a little bit to the pan, and then when we finally deglaze it with that wine. So you can see now I'm also just kind of mushing it together. It's one way to do it too is to throw it in a blender or a food processor, all those roasted vegetables, but I was a little lazy. And I think this method works just fine too. As you can see there, it's all those mushrooms, everything. I put a million things in there, and you really can't tell them apart at this point. Remember those portobellas? Oh yeah. Yeah, so this is a part that I kind of do separate from all the other ones, just because they're so tasty and meaty, and had a really nice char on them, so they're going to add a lot of flavor when they go in. A little bit bigger pieces than the rest of the vegetables. So now, so now look and see how it's all starting to stick, and it's all. So I'm making a little spot there where I'm going to take that Tempranillo from Spain. I like to cook with Finger Lakes wine, but this particular wine, really heavy and bold, is important, and this is when things really start to get exciting. So kind of deglazing that pan with all those sticky bits, and we're just going to mix it all together. And again, this is over pretty high heat still, and we're going to let that cook down. And you know, at this point, at least, geez, I'd say an hour and a half has gone by since I started.
Oh my goodness.
A little nutmeg, fresh nutmeg grated over the top. Wouldn't call it a secret ingredient, but I found with almost any type of ragu or pasta, tomato-based pasta sauce, nutmeg really is a hidden flavor that lights everything up. So pasta goes into the water, and now this is that fresh oregano. We're going to just chop that up and throw that in with the sauce as well. Mix that around. So at this point, you're right, Sid. The kitchen smelled amazing.
Oh yeah, I can't even. I'm sad I can't smell it right now. Oh, gotta do that.
A little
Gotta do
pasta
the pasta
water to now the flavor is so concentrated in that saucepan, so we gotta get it a little more saucy, and what better way to do that than just a little of that pasta water.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I was getting excited at this point. Now, Parmesan Reggiano, healthy amount. This was actually the second batch. I put some in and then put some more in and just kind of mix it up. It starts to melt.
That's it right there for me.
Good Parmesan Reggiano if you can find. Or Pecorino Romano is good too, either one. And then a little more of that pasta water.
It really does, just looking at it, look like a meat dish right now, like a meat sauce.
Right, I like to think that people who you don't tell is vegetarian eat it and they don't know the difference. So now, this is where I probably made a mistake with this dish. I put too much pasta in. I really want that ragu just like smother, so much, but I put all the pasta in. Maybe the pasta to sauce ratio was a little bit off. And I also would have preferred to use maybe a tagliatelle or something a little thinner than this Malfadine, but it was fine.
That pasta looks so good.
Turn down the heat. I told you to forget about the shrimp.
Oh yeah.
A little butter in a frying pan and everything that we put in the refrigerator in that shrimp.
Ooh,
we're going to just quickly cook the shrimp, and then we'll be ready to plate this and eat it.
Yeah, that shrimp is going to add so much to it.
Squeeze a little lime on there. Yeah, it's so good. I love, maybe it's a personal thing, but I love the Ancho chilies with the shrimp. So we just toss that around a little bit. And
I'd make a mess right there. Spill it all over the pan.
Now we plate it. There goes the pasta with that delicious ragu, which again, I wish it was more ragu and less pasta. Like there wasn't enough of the sauce left in the pan to even put over the pasta. But some more cheese, Parmesan Reggiano, fresh grated over the top. And then we're gonna add just some shrimp along the side. I like to do dishes in one bowl so I can we can just sit on the couch and watch a movie or whatever we're watching that night while we eat. And then a little bit more of that fresh oregano. And voila, there it is.
Woo, I see you got a little help. Somebody was videotaping for you this time.
A little help with the camera for some of it. So that's it. And again, the key is to roast the heck out of those vegetables so they char and burn, and that's where you get the flavor. You also see I do some things that are maybe unconventional, like putting cinnamon and sugar on top of some of that stuff, but it just adds a little depth of flavor that you can't quite put your finger on. And I like to rate my...
yes. What is it?
The ragu itself, when it was in that saucepan, was a 9.5 out of 10.
Wow.
It was so good. But when I put too much pasta in, it really dropped things down to about like maybe a 7.
That's probably a personal preference. I bet somebody else who was eating it would also still rate it up in the 9s. It looked amazing. I love this segment, but I also don't love it because I want to try it. It's 9, 10 o'clock in the morning and I'm watching this and I get so hungry, and then you finish and I'm like, oh man, I wish I could taste test it.
Yeah, that was, I think, Friday night that I made that.
Well, you're always making something good, and I enjoy this segment a lot, so I'm glad I get to learn a little bit. Like I said, I know you don't do recipes.